Welcome back, and the purpose of this video today is we're going to do the current walk around, all the mods that we've got on our LN106 Team Bullet truck. We haven't done one in a while, and we've had a lot of questions, which we don't mind. We love answering your questions. So bullet trucks are a lot different to the last walk around videos we've done. We'll start in the cab, we'll pop the bonnet. So yeah, these doors that we've got on at the moment are quite new. They're only a few runs old. We haven't hit anything with them yet. We ended up painting this section of it black. I think that gives quite a nice look with the sponsor stickers. Obviously the cab's copped a little bit of a flogging over time. We've got the genuine door cards on, and I mean, these open and close like a new car. How good are these quarter windows? One of my most favorite things in the old vehicles. But we'll pop the bonnet and we'll start under there. So it's actually not a 2.8 as the badge suggests, but we've had this 5L in this for a long time. Now it's out of a 2004 LN167, this motor. Now it was naturally aspirated, and we've added in an AXT turbo. We've got a surf airbox. Now with the surf airboxes, we've been doing this all our lives, whether it was the 2.4, the 2.8, you just take away all those bends that the air's trying to get around. So we're coming straight in the snorkel, straight through the guard and into the surf airbox. We've got a catch can. Now this pump's been tweaked by Diesel Equipment Services at Kirrawee. Now Brian and myself have had the pump off numerous times, and about a year and a half or so ago he had to bring it up to spec, retime it, put new injectors in. It actually puts out enough horsepower for what we need. So the power steer pump in there, it's also been tweaked. We've got the ARB compressor in there, which feeds front and rear lockers and our rear disconnect. The diff breather's coming up into the engine bay. That brake booster's seen better days. It's not looking too good in condition, is it? Bit rusty there. A more modern filter system over what come standard on these vehicles. UHF aerial isolator switch, which cuts off the fuel pump. In the case of a rollover, marshals can quickly come along and turn the vehicle off. So we've got that chrome grille, the one-piece grille off a later model, that custom black eye from Kuma Round 1 in 2022. We've got the Roadrunner low mount, high-speed winch in there. I've been running that particular winch for many years. Roadrunner's been a very good sponsor for Team Bullet Off-Road. So the cage, I think Adam's had about 2 or 3 goes with the cage. We've slowly been adding to the cage. It's now a CCDA compliant cage, painted in bullet blue. A crack in the windscreen. We must have got a rock just now on our way here while it was on the trailer. So that reservoir there, that's our power steering fluid, as we're running a hydro assist ram, and the fluid from the factory reservoir just wasn't enough. It's our fuel cell on board. We've had that up there a long time. So this is how we roll when we're on trails, when we're doing social wheeling. The spare tire, the toolbox. Obviously in a competition we wouldn't be having any of that weight on the back. And you can see how the tray is bolted down to the chassis, incorporated into that roll cage, into the sliders, into the front bar. So in the last time that we did modify the cage, we added in a couple of extra gussets and supports. We fitted in these joiners as well. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to cut out the upside down V there to get a new screen in eventually. So the bonnet's a new addition as well. No bonnet scoop. We normally run the N70 scoop on our bonnets. So our shoes, we're sitting on a 40-inch trep, 13.5 inches wide on a 17-inch rim. So these are the creeper locks from Trailgear, supplied to us by Roadrunner Off-Road, and they are a 17x9. So where we've had a lot of changes and people have not caught up to date is in our suspension and our steering. We'll start with the rear. So we did the 80 series rear diff conversion quite a while ago now, and as it stands, we're running a 456 nitro setup in the rear diff with an ARB air locker. The gears supplied to us by Roadrunner Off-Road again. Factory 80 series axles. We've got N80 rear springs. Now these were supplied to us by Mark at Carroll Springs. They're an EFS 2-inch lifted N80 rear off the shelf. We've got a 200mm shackle. And the way we've got them to work so well is we've moved that front mount forward. In doing so, he's welded in a plate so that we can slide off our chassis down the ramp and then over the springs. Otherwise that would be just sitting there ready to hit a rock. We've got these saddles made up to keep the spring together at a particular point so that they don't come apart too far, but yet allow us for the springs to open up. We've got a Snake Racing wrap bar that we've had for many moons, and Adam incorporated a bracket to house that when we did the 80 rear conversion. Disc brakes in the rear, they make stopping so much easier. 80 series bump stops. So these are a superior engineering 14-inch shock. We've put these in the best angle we can to get both the flex and the rigidity that a shock needs to give. A tidy little rear suck down winch we got from Matthew at Kinsella's Creations. The tail shaft is a one piece. It's been modified quite a few times. When we added the dual cases, we cut it down, and then when we added the rear disconnect, we modified again. You can see it's quite tight there up against that cross member. We keep getting away with it. So the 80 diff, while it's big, it's actually strong. We haven't broken one, touch wood, in the time that we've had the 80 diff under there, and that's been quite a few years. Got a couple of cheap rock lights underneath. So we'll move to the front end. So this is an 80 series front housing that Brian's put together. It's braced. We've got RCVs in it from Roadrunner Off-Road, and the latest mod we've done to get the tie rod and drag link up the front are some Hellfire knuckles from Ruff Specialties. So this is your high steer setup for an 80 series. The only dramas we're having at the moment is we can't get the axle seals to stop leaking. But how good does that look? So the tie rod there, that's an aluminium link from Hillfab, friend of mine Josh. And we've got the same material to go in as a drag link. But we need to modify that sump. So that's one of the very next modifications, because the aluminium link is quite a bit thicker. And you can see there with the spacers, the factory drag link that we had set up previously is now a bit short. So the link that Josh made up will take away those spaces. So it's a high pinion center, obviously being an 80 series. Again, the ratios matched, 456, again from Roadrunner, again stronger than factory. So the ram we've got in there, Brian's, I think he's just found one in the rubbish bin and rebuilt it. So that's hydro assisted. So the pump's been modified, the box has been modified. We've got the bigger reservoir on the back, and it turns these 40s with ease. Shock hoops got done by Adam quite a while ago now. So these here are a rear up front. So they're an off the shelf 2-inch lift for the rear of a live axle front. I know that's confusing, but these springs are for the rear of most Hiluxes. And what that did, it pushed the front diff forward a good 80 mil. Gives clearance for the big tyre, not to hit the guard, but they're also longer, so they give a lot more flex. Together with the banana shackle and now the new knuckles, none of the links there restrict the travel at all. We've got 80 series bump stops, some massive 16-inch Bilsteins. We pretty much use all of it. You can see the compression here, there's not much shaft left. And as far as down travel, I mean, that's amazing. The steering geometry was that tight. You can see too, the custom design of that U-bolt holding the leaf pack. Brian outdid himself on that one, and it's just so tidy and neat. Adam fitted in the drop front hanger quite some time ago now when we first went high steer. It's got an IFS box in it, and you can see there all the hydraulic lines that are going to the box. We've got a pitman arm that we're not sure what it's out of, but it works. It just clears the chassis, and when the leaves come up, they're nowhere near it. Custom Hardy and Spicer front tail shaft, 80 series ends on it. The PTO shaft, the inside one, pretty much goes the full length of the outside one. Something else supplied to us by Roadrunner Off-Road. It's the off-the-shelf dual transfer case cross member from Trailgear. Now we've bent the bejeebers out of this quite a few times. It's gone back to Adam's shop for bracing. I call it the Ned Kelly of the vehicle. To be honest, I'm surprised that the chassis handled the punishment that we've given it. And it's funny because just the other day somebody was considering an LN65, and I said, you know what, the chassis in the 106s are not only a generation newer, but I feel that they're stronger. You see, the last thing that Brian did is we took the ram off the bracket that it was at because we wanted to get it more level across. And he's made a bracket that's been incorporated into the U-bolt. Just genius. It's a work in progress, this thing. Inside, we've pretty much kept the dash original. We haven't cut it up. Haven't had a reason to. I mean, this is the cool model that had the cup holders from factory. So while it had air conditioning years ago when we used to drive it on the road, it's now gone. We've got a light here to show us the glow. We've got a UHF radio, external speaker, stopwatch for those fast stages. So while it was a road vehicle, we had a decent stereo in it too. So we've got comfortable seats with harnesses. So whilst having those harnesses, we had to remove the back window and put in a Perspex one with cutouts here for the straps to come out to the taxi bar. That's all compliant to CCDA. That upright there was one of the last things we had to add for our logbooks. We've got rock light switches here. We've got a fuel pump switch here because for a while there we had issues on big angles. This is before Brian retimed the pump. But this comes in handy when we're changing filters. The air locker switches, compressor, front and rear disconnect. Now back in the day, we used to mount these when we competed in the middle. So the Navvy, who was always in the car back in those comps, could work it. But this day and age, the driver's on his own. So having them there is quite handy. We've got the winch remote internally. We've got a boost gauge, turbo timer, which is off at the moment. We used to run that when we're on the road. Yes, we do forget stuff. So we've got dual cases with a top shift. So we can go 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, low and high, and then you've got your 5-speed. So this is the factory G52 5-speed. We're running behind the 5L. While they're weak, is strong enough for our application. There's so much reduction. We've got 4 7s in the one case, and then we've got factory gears in the second. Now they're trail gear 4 7s in it at the moment. We broke the Marlins at the last 24-hour challenge, and they didn't have stock. But the adapter plate between the two is the Marlin MO80, I think it is, the comp spec one. And even those gears that we broke, they were comp spec Marlin gears. The cutting holes in the floor, we've got all this custom checker plate in the custom orange. We've got a voltmeter here. The alternator got beefed up probably 10 years ago. It's withstood all the mud and water. Harnesses. Here's our rear suck down controller. So while I'm driving, if I'm being told by the Navvy rear suck down, which we never use, but it's there. So the very next mods we're doing, we're going to be putting in cutting brakes. So they'll be sitting here, another couple of levers. Fire extinguisher, first aid kit, all in behind the cab. We've got a 1-inch body lift. We've got the trail gear rear disconnect, which I actually really like now. I'm getting used to it. And with the cutting brakes coming, we should be able to utilize that a lot better. So we're going to try and work out why we keep blowing these front axle seals, even the good trail gear ones. Look, it's not the end of the world. At the same time, it's not ideal. We're mixing in the beautiful Penrite 8140 we run in with the CV grease. So once you see oil starting to hit that tyre, you know that your 8140 has gone through and it's watered down. CV grease. It's still full bodied, still on leaf springs, and it's still all Toyota. We could have easily put NISSAN diffs under it for strength. So while the ARB air lockers are one of my favourite mods, together with the dual cases, I mean the 40-inch treps, the creeper lock wheels, I don't know, it doesn't stop. I love the whole thing. So what's the wheelbase, you ask? We've pushed the front diff forward and the rear diff's gone back a bit. We're a limousine of crawlers at 116 inches. So yes, both times putting the 80 diffs in, all the brackets and all the coil mounts all needed to be ground off. Perches needed to be set up and welded on. And yes, people ask, and it's true, it would have been easier to put coils in. But to me, that's vanilla. Leaf springs, party harder. Leaf springs forever. So that's the rundown of the Bullet, done and dusted. The current mods, and apart from those couple that I mentioned we're going to do, we're done. Or so I say. Sometimes I wonder how my wife puts up with me. And while I'm 52 years old, every time I get in that car, I feel 25. I love the thing. And the aim is that the kids take it over and they enjoy it as I did. Although they won't have driven it on the road and then turned it into what it is, like I have. So there's a lot of memories I have of it. But there's 2 other people that I need to thank because I haven't been able to build this thing on my own. Brian and Adam, amazing friends. intelligent people. But without those two, Bullet wouldn't be what Bullet is. And what Bullet is, it's one of those things you dream of as a kid. That's what I've got, and I thank you both. And I caught up with Adam the other day actually, and his 40's looking pretty wicked. Wheeling now with Jacob, the next generation. Nicholas is a little bit behind, but they'll be wheeling together before we know it. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Plenty more to come. Who knows what's next, but something will be. And as always, thanks for watching.